In looking over my notes from last year, it occurs to me that I forgot to record some more schools whose students celebrated the land run last April. At Wilson School, students and teachers looked into the past through games, food, and dress. Cleveland School celebrated with a fitness day that combined physical education and history. Students played games and tested their endurance in activities with themes from the past. Teachers and parents organized and supervised the activities while students visited a variety of sites on the playground. I was also reminded that I had attended a foreign language banquet last spring with students and faculty from Central Mid-High. Students prepared and brought food representing the cuisine of the many cultures they studied in foreign language class. Principals Dan Lovett and Donna Brown, and teachers Melinda Minshaw, Connie Hawkins, Marty West, and Edna Schoaf enjoyed the benefits of their planning and organization. The food was marvelous. Students were able to sample dishes from France, Spain, Mexico, and even Rome. Student artwork decorated the walls. Students were obviously having fun while developing a deeper appreciation for the cultures they were studying. I recently went out to Andrews Park to visit the West foreign language teachers and their students while they celebrated the annual foreign language picnic. Students gathered and ate a catered fried chicken dinner. They seemed to enjoy one another's company. After dinner, foreign language teachers organized several games and contests. The traditional egg toss across the Andrews Park Canal was entered into with gusto by many students. Some students showed great finesse in throwing and catching their eggs, while others ended up with egg on their face. The highlight of the evening was the water balloon volleyball game. Girls took on the boys in a game that demanded group skills and cooperation, not to mention being willing to get a little bit soggy. Seventh graders at Whittier Middle School spent the day at Sutton Wilderness, Norman's urban wilderness park.
You stay with your adult sponsor, whether it's a teacher or a parent. You complete your pages in your science folder, and then you work on your social studies lesson. At some point, your adult sponsor may ask you to sit down and write your paragraph for social studies.
Science and social studies teachers provided activities for the students while they explored the park in small groups led by parent volunteers. The children found evidence of animal life as well as the impact of man. Several groups settled down on the shores of a lake to discuss their experiences and to write an essay for social studies. Students seem to really learn from experiences outside of the classroom. Whittier's sixth grade teachers, Kathy Grebb and Corrine Nelson, were starting an archaeology unit with their classes and asked me to drop in and give their students some pointers. Whoa! We've only had writing for about the last 10,000 years. Now that seems like a long time to all of you. When you get to be my age, it doesn't seem quite so long. How many years have human beings been around, do scientists estimate? Take a guess. Somebody make a wild guess. 1 million years? 200 million? That's too many. 1 million years is what we're looking for. I tried to make it clear to students that archaeology was far more than digging up objects from the ground. There's an argument going on. They haven't settled it yet. So let's just round it off and say 1 million. 10,000 years out of 1 million, if I drew a line and said this line represents 1 million years, how much of it would be 10,000 years? Yeah, that's right. About an inch, right down here. This is written past. This is non-written past. Who studies the written past? Historians. Who studies the non-written past?
Archaeologists.
Archaeologists, right. There's way more written documents than there are non-written stuff. Students got a hands-on demonstration of the difficulties of analyzing unusual artifacts from long-dead cultures. Well, we're going to talk about archaeology today. They also discovered that archaeologists painstakingly excavate their sites, recording the most minute data in an effort to reconstruct as precisely as possible the patterns of behavior of our ancestors. On On September 26, 1989, I went to Adams Elementary to help them celebrate the birthday of John Chapman, better known as Johnny Appleseed. Students all through the school had been well prepared on the amazing life of this extraordinary man. I was delighted to help librarian Linda Cowan read the story of John Chapman's life to kindergarten students. My early 19th century costume fascinated the children, and they asked question after question about life in the early 1800s. They were intrigued as I explained how to save their apple seeds and to plant them, much as Johnny Appleseed had. They also recognized the difference between the actual facts of John Chapman's life and the exaggerations that had become a part of the Johnny Appleseed legend. Later on, I visited several classrooms and answered many thoughtful questions about the life of John Chapman and other early pioneers. What do you think they're doing? Trees. And how do we get trees to grow? We get seeds, that's right. Inside of every apple, there's 5 or 6 little seeds. So today, when you take your apple home and eat it, don't throw away the core. Instead, open the core up to find the seeds that are inside of it. And then talk to your mom and dad about taking them outside and finding a special place in your backyard or your front yard and planting your apple seeds. Now, not every apple seed grows into a tree. So you'll have to be very careful with it and very patient. They won't always grow into a tree. But if you plant your apple seed today, maybe you'll be one of the lucky boys and girls that have an apple tree grow from that seed. Will you do that for me? Yes! I'm going to let Mrs. Cowan read you the story that she's got today about me. Let's see what happens.
This is one of our favorite authors and illustrators. It's Stephen Kellogg, and today's book is called Johnny Appleseed, A Tall Tale. John Chapman, who later became known as Johnny Appleseed, was born on September 26, 1774, when the apples on the trees surrounding his home were as red as autumn leaves. John's first years were hard. His father left the family to fight in the Revolutionary War. And his mother and his baby brother died before John was 2 years old. By the time John was 6, his father had remarried and settled in Longmeadow, Massachusetts. Within 10 years, their little house was overflowing with 10 more children. Nearby was an apple orchard. Like most families, the Chapmans picked their apples in the fall and stored them in the cellar for winter eating, and used them to make sauces, cider, vinegar, and apple butter. John loved to watch the spring blossoms slowly turn into the glowing fruit of autumn. Watching the apples grow inspired John in a love of all of nature. He often escaped from his boisterous household to the tranquil, quiet woods. The animals sensed his gentleness and trusted him. As soon as John was old enough to leave home, he set out to explore the wilderness to the west. When he reached the Allegheny Mountains, he cleared a plot of land and planted a small orchard with the pouch of apple seeds he carried with him. John walked hundreds of miles through the Pennsylvania forest, living like the Indians he befriended on the trail. As he traveled, he cleared the land for many more orchards. He was sure the pioneer families would be arriving before long, and he looked forward to supplying them with apple trees. When a storm struck, he found shelter in a hollow log, or he built a lean-to. On clear nights, he stretched out under the stars. Over the next few years, John continued to visit and care for his new orchards. The winters slowed him down, but he survived on a diet of butternuts. Butternuts are sort of like pecans, not exactly. One spring, he met a band of men who boasted that they could lick their weight in wildcats. They were amazed to hear that John wouldn't hurt any animal and had no use for a gun. They challenged John to compete at wrestling, the favorite frontier sport. He suggested a more practical contest, a tree chopping match. The woodsmen eagerly agreed.
Who do you think is going to win this contest?
Why do you think that John is going to win this contest? Because he did it.
Yeah, I'm used to chopping down trees.
See that picture up there? Look at all those trees that were being chopped down. My goodness. He had to give it a lot of wax. When the sawdust settled, there was no question who had come out on top. John was pleased that the land for his largest orchard had been so quickly cleared. Wasn't he smart? He got all that help. He thanked the exhausted woodmen for their help, and he began planting.
You can plant trees not only from seeds, but from little cuttings from the branches. And I took these branches from an apple tree, and I'll take them. Notice I've got sawdust, saw shavings around the bottom to keep them cool and moist. And I'll take them and stick them in the ground, and next spring they'll sprout leaves and roots on the bottom, and they'll grow up into apple trees too. So you can do apple seeds, or you can do sprouts from apple trees. That's what these are. These are apple sprouts. Let's listen to the rest of the story.
During the next few years, John continued to move westward. Whenever he ran out of apple seeds, he hiked to the eastern cider presses to replenish his supply. Before long, John's plantings were spread across the state of Ohio. Remember, he started in Pennsylvania and then he went to Ohio. Meanwhile, the pioneer families families were arriving in search of home sites and farmland. John had located his orchards on the routes he thought they'd be traveling. As he had hoped, the settlers were eager to buy his young trees.